Hey guys, what's going on? It's just Sash here, and welcome back to part 3 of this series of videos designed to help you find a job teaching English abroad. So think of it as like tips and tricks into finding work. So yeah, in the previous episode we talked about applying and the different resources that I've given you guys that you can use, different websites and stuff like that. So but I didn't go too much into detail about like in person, like if you were in country. That was all with the assumption that you were applying either from home, in your home country, or maybe you are in country but you're applying online. So I want to do a quick little rundown of just like what I did and tips you can do for like when you are in country. So let's assume that you're like, okay, you decided you wanted to come to the country and look for a job like I did for Cambodia. I landed, found an apartment, and then you have one or two options, right? Your first option is going online, okay, which is what we talked about in the last episode. So I'm not going to go too much into detail about that, but the second option is essentially just, printing out your resume. Make sure you have that picture in the corner. Make sure you spruced it up with all those tips that I gave you and handing it in, hand it in. Make sure you're dressed fairly decent, don't go in there with board shorts and a wife beater and slippers and just be like, oh, there you go. That's not, make an impression, right? So let's assume then, you go to different places and apply and apply and apply. Like I said in the previous video, apply. Even if you get calls, keep applying until you get that yes, start on Monday thing. So yeah. But the main focus of this video is what to do while you're in the interviewing process. I've gotten a bunch of questions asked by viewers saying, okay, how should I go about the interview? What kind of questions can I expect and stuff like that. So this video is hopefully can be useful to you guys, So in regards to doing the interview, right? So what'll happen is that they'll get your resume, they'll look it over, and if you have what they're looking for, if they like you, they'll call you in. Now, once you get that call, it'll most likely be something along the lines that we're interested in you. Can you stop by for an interview? Now, most schools will ask you to do a demo class. Full disclosure, when I was going to China for the first time, I wasn't asked to do a demo class just because I believe that they're really, really desperate for a teacher. So, but most places, they ask you to do a demo class, which is what I ended up doing for this school right here. So, and with the demo class, they'll most likely give you a book and something, a section of a thing that they want you to teach or something like that. So, yeah, what you keep it simple. What I recommend is like split it up into different sections, right? Just like how I would do a lesson, right? What you can do is the first one is like a warm-up, okay? With my kids, I usually do stand up and sit down or something like that, just so that, it's something fun, get them active. For the demo class, it doesn't have to be like that because you're only doing it with usually the person that the manager maybe, or a manager and a teacher or something like that. So keep it simple. You can just point to them and say, what's your name? And then remember, it's a demo class, so do your best to pretend that these are students, that this isn't, like a grown woman or grown man in front of you. So if it seems like they're making a mistake, correct them. Don't be arrogant and don't be, rude about it, but correct them and fix it, and then, throw a little, yeah, buddy, good job, and a high five or something like that, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's a good warm-up, just go up to them and say, what's your name, and then there you go. The next section can be the meat of the lesson, right? So if you're teaching colors, right, we'll say colors, you can write on the board, for example, the blue, B-L-U-E, right? And then go over it and try and find something in the class that's blue and then associate it and then ask them, you know, point to it, and then depending on how far they're gonna role play it, they'll either make a mistake or they'll get it right first try. So, but if they make a mistake, correct them and be attentive to that, you know? Definitely be attentive to that. And then just, it's a lot of repetition, right? It's a lot of repetition, especially with like younger levels. It's a lot of repetition. So what also you can do is it's a game that I usually like to play, right? So like I said, you know, if you're doing colors, you put all the colors on the board after you finish going over it, okay? Or if they give you flashcards, that's even better. It all depends, you know. You'll write it on the board, okay, right behind you, and right behind me, and you'll write them on the board, and then so you can have them into like 2 columns, you know. So we'll do blue, red, yellow, and then on the other side will be green, pink, white, black, or something like that, okay? And then what you can do is have them come up to the board, go over it a few times before you play this game, mind you. Go over it, review it, so you point blue, 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 blue. So you'll say it and then they'll repeat after you, right? So you point blue, then they'll say blue, 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 blue. Do it, you know, 4 or 5 times. Do it with each one, okay, each row. And then after you do that, you'll have the 2 people, or if it's 1 person, come up, okay? And if it's 1 person, you can tell them, okay, I'll say the word, and then I want you to touch the right word, okay? So you want them to touch and say the word, okay? And then you'll do that a few times, and with the kids, they love it, you know, because they're getting up, they're being active, they're touching, and they're speaking and stuff, so that's if you're doing it by yourself or by themselves, right? If it's just 1 student. But if it's multiple students, right? If you have 2, 3, 4, 5 people, if it's really big, like if they have like 6 people, you know, watching you do a demo class, then split them up into teams and make it a little competition, you know? If it's just the 2, then just have them come up, and then what you tell them is that you say they touch, right? Basic, okay? And then what you can do is they'll explain to them that it's a competition, that you want them to be fast, right? And, you know, again, for the kids love this because it's a game and you're making it a little bit competitive, so they want to win, right? And then for the demo class, it looks good, okay? So you do it a few times. If they role play and make mistakes, then correct it. You know, that's the thing though. Don't treat this and don't assume that because they're adults, they're going to behave like adults. No, they're pretending to be kids, okay? So you go through the game, do it a few times or whatever, and then afterwards, that's it. Have them sit down, and again, always treat them like they're students. Role play, treat them like they're students. So after that, maybe the last section can be review. You go over everything, have them point to the colors, or not touch, but point. You know, you can point to something red in the class, point to something blue in the class, and then after that, that's pretty much it. You know, you say that's all for today. Thanks, and then depending on if they like it or not, you can probably have a second interview right then and there. Or they'll say, okay, well, we'll get back to you. It all depends on the school's procedure, their hiring procedure. So like maybe for some schools that'll be enough, right? They're like, okay, and they'll say, okay, yep, you got the job. And they might not even ask you any questions. But I would probably believe that they would like sit you down and then ask you questions afterward. And questions in regards to, okay, if you're in a class and a student is misbehaving, how do you plan to discipline or manage that child or that student? You know, use your common sense, and you know, if you've gone through the TEFL course, you know, all that stuff is covered in a TEFL course, but use common sense. If you haven't gone through a TEFL course, use common sense. Don't say that you're gonna beat the kid or scream at the kid or anything like that. You know what I mean? Because you don't do that, you know? Another question that they'll ask can be, you know, how would you manage a large classroom, right? Because sometimes they'll have classes of a bunch of kids, you know what I mean? So they'll ask you questions in regards to that. But most of the questions, I can't think of every single possible question that I was asked just because it's been so long ago, but mainly it has to do with classroom management and discipline, right? That's a majority of a bulk of the questions that will be asked. And like I said, use common sense, and yeah, after that, you'll probably get another interview with the head of the school. You know, you'll have the interview with the head of the school, right? Principal, headmaster, whatever they want to use, whatever title. And generally the questions in that aspect will be, you know, they'll explain to you everything about the school, and then if everything goes well, okay, they'll ask you, you know, what are you looking for, you know, like salary wise. And in that instance, it all depends on, you know, again, what qualifications you have, and your experience and all that stuff. So if you have a lot of experience and you have a bachelor's degree and all that stuff, do your research beforehand. Let me just stop myself here. Do your research beforehand and learn the average. What's the going rate? What's the average salary per month for a teacher with qualifications, and then without qualifications, okay? And then gauge and measure and you know, again, you're not gonna get rich being an English teacher. Like you're not gonna get rich, you're not gonna make, you know, ridiculous amount of money, but you can live comfortably, especially if you have a degree, or especially if you have a Teflon experience, especially if you have something, okay? You can live comfortably, okay? If you come in with nothing, it's possible you can find work, it's possible that you can, you know, depending if you're lucky, it's possible that you can still be somewhat comfortable, okay? But always, you know what you're worth, right? That's one of the most important things I can say to you is know what you're worth, okay? Don't let yourself get taken advantage of, and always do your research. That's one of the best pieces of advice that I can give. Know what you're worth. If you have a bachelor's degree and you have experience as a teacher or just working with kids in general, you're top tier, man. Ask for top dollar. You know, if you don't have a degree, but let's say you're in my boat, you don't have a degree, but you have tons of experience, you have a TEFL, and I recently just got certification in teaching young learners, so that's another certificate that I can add to my resume. You can't command, you know, bachelor's degree money, but you can get pretty close. If you have all these other qualifications and a certificate and experience and all that stuff, you can get pretty close, you know, and depending on how you come off, how confident you are, you can probably get bachelor's degree money, you know what I mean? So, but if you have absolutely nothing, don't expect much, but don't, you know, let yourself get taken advantage of, okay? Do the research, see what's the average for people with degrees, without degrees, with certs, without certs, and all that stuff. Know what you're worth. And as a rule of thumb, I guess you can say don't make the first offer. Try your best not to make the first offer. That's another little tip that I can give you guys. Because if you make the first offer, who knows? Maybe you went too high or maybe you went too low, you know? So, yeah, I believe that's pretty much it for all the interviewing process. You know, let's just do a quick recap here. You will get a phone call saying, hey, we want you to come in for an interview. You come in, you do a demo class. I told you basically what you can do for a demo class, so you're welcome. I would hope you guys would subscribe and share the video for that. You can do your demo class. After you do your demo class, they'll sit you down and ask you some questions in regards to classroom management and stuff like that, and discipline. And like I said, it's gonna be, think common sense, okay? Especially if you did your TEFL, they'll cover that in your TEFL course. They'll definitely cover it. So after that, if they like you, you can either get called back in another day for a second interview, or they'll do it right then and there. And then right then and there, it'll be with the head, and they'll probably ask you the same questions as before, or it will be basically stuff about the school and you know, what they expect and all that stuff. But generally, once you get that second interview, like with the headmaster, you're pretty close. You're pretty close. And then once they start talking about salary and stuff like that, it's all but decided. You know what I mean? It's just, you're literally fingertips away. Luckily for me, I got hired the same day, and it was great. And I was very lucky, very fortunate, and I'm very thankful. You know what I mean? That's one thing that I can definitely say is that I'm very grateful. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave me an email, itsjustsash@gmail.com, itsjustsash@gmail.com, just like the YouTube channel. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Remember to LSS, like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.